Hello, my menagerie of decay and corruption. Yeah, I think that'll do it. So last year I did some riffing on one of Chris Bawes' books, as well as his ghost hunting TV show. This year I thought I'd revisit the subject of ghost hunting by going back to an old video from my childhood.
This video was a promo video made for the Ghosthunter PS2 game around 2003. It's a most haunted knockoff with the same boring kinds of people talking a boatload of shite about bollocks.
What I like about this video is it is like a ghost hunting show, but it's somehow even shittier. Like, they don't have the ghosts, so they just sort of have to make it up as they go along and come up with reasons as to why there is a ghost there, but we just can't see it. Basically, it's a bigger dumpster fire than Chris Bawes' shitty ghost hunting show. Let that be a warning.
The video stars two paranormal investigators who are still around today, still doing their thing. Both of them plod around locations vaguely similar to the Ghost Hunter video game and have to come up with some bullshit reason as to why they're there. We start off with this text showing us what we're in for and begin the real video. It then cuts to the most 2000s intro I think I've ever seen. It has the most cliche horror sounds on record and all these flashy jump cuts. It looks really dated. I know it's 17 years old at this point, but Jesus Christ. This documentary is voiced by Welsh National Treasure Christopher Timothy, and I'm not gonna lie, he does a really good job of selling it. I think he's the greatest talent behind this thing.
I'd say that I'm around 90% certain that this is the same guy. The only thing that makes it hard to tell is that in this video he talks very slowly and rather officially, usually to drive home the point that this is a serious ghost hunting video. And in everything else he talks like a normal human, so that's kind of where it gets kind of difficult. But as far as I can tell, yes, this is the same guy.
So the way they tried to sell this to us is that these game developers made a game unknowingly incorporating several real spirits and haunted locations. They send out some real ghost hunters to investigate these locations.
So if they went in with the idea that this could totally just be bullshit, I'd have more respect for it. Like, if they had some minor special effects to try and make it look like there's ghosts there, and maybe ham it up a bit to make it look like, you know, oh, it's a ghost hunting show and the ghosts are real, ooh. But they don't. It's like Most Haunted, basically. It's the exact same shit, only it's not as well done as one of those shows. And those shows are not well done at all, but this is just the worst cliches that you get out of one of those kinds of shows, but without any of the results.
They basically try to find hauntings that are similar to the ones in the game, and then report on ghost sightings, but like I always say, how do you know that a ghost is even going to be there? Let's pretend that ghosts were real, like that's a fact. Hypothetically. They'd surely be like birds or something, right? Bird watchers, even like the best bird watchers on the planet, can't just find birds out of nowhere. Sometimes they have to lie in wait for hours to come across certain breeds, but in ghost hunting videos, they just roll up and just happen to find a discovery of the century right there before them.
Basically, I think it would have been a lot better if they'd abandoned any and all attempt at legitimacy. Just have a guy run out in a monster costume and chase them around like Scooby-Doo. It would be a hell of a lot more entertaining, and it would probably be more legitimate than the bullshit they got on display here.
Whilst creating the new PlayStation 2 title Ghosthunter, a team of games developers stumbled on what appeared at first to be a series of strange coincidences. Not only did locations created in the game exist for real, many of the legends and myths surrounding these places mirrored those in the game with eerie accuracy.
So they pack their bags and fly off to the United States looking for ghosts. Hurrah! So we're introduced to our two experts, Kalila Smith, parapsychologist,
She's basically the female Chris Bawes,
and Billy Roberts, world-renowned psychic.
I find it kind of funny because the typical aesthetic of these two people is kind of reversed. So in most ghost hunting shows, she would be the psychic, and he would be the more legitimate post, the psychologist and whatever. So it's kind of interesting on that front, because apart from her gender, because typically women are more usually likely to be psychics in these sort of things, I find it kind of weird because as well she dresses like a psychic would in these kind of things. I have to give this thing a bit of credit for at least being able to break stereotypes. Really stupid stereotypes.
So the first ghost sighting place is a plantation house, where there's been a lot of drama apparently. Oh, I really hope some Jacob Marley black slave ghosts don't appear. That could get kind of awkward. Actually, no, that's not a bad idea for a horror movie, I'm not gonna lie.
The property is said to host the spirits of several long-dead inhabitants. Of greatest interest to the team were reported sightings of a sinister child, identical to Jessie Planter, the ghostly girl imprisoned in the De Montfort mansion in Ghosthunter.
So you jackasses made a video game about a ghost girl in an nondescript haunted house, and you're legitimately surprised that there's folklore that resembles that in any which shape or form. You're all idiots.
I find that most paranormal experience or activity in old houses is due to a sort of a build-up of energy which creates a photographic image.
Ah yes, energy.
So the uninitiated amongst you when it comes to the world of ghost hunting will notice that the word energy gets brought up a lot in this show. Energy is what you refer to when you have absolutely nothing in front of you but need to act like you do. It's basically how you make a lot out of nothing.
You see, by saying that there's energy in an empty room, you can hide the fact that there's absolutely fuck all there, and say, there is something here, but you couldn't possibly pick it up on film.
Basically, it's the ghost hunting version of, oh, it totally happened for real, guys! Except people actually buy it.
I particularly felt something in this corner, as though there might have been a crib or a cot of some kind.
What did you sense? The ghost of a fucking crib?
Does furniture have a soul? When it dies, does it turn into a fucking ghost? Does that mean I'm gonna get haunted by that chair that I put a hole in the other year?
Actually, I got some readings over here on the electromagnetic meter.
Oh god, the electromagnetic meter.
Ding.
What's that?
It's a machine that goes ding.
These are devices designed really to detect electrical currents inside of properties. For example, if you abandoned your house and didn't want to pay electric bills for it anymore, or were afraid that tramps would move in and electrocute themselves and die on your living room carpet, you'd hire a guy with one of these to go around and make sure that there were no live wires inside the walls. Fun fact though, the price of these things has gone up dramatically because of these idiots. Because what these guys do is they buy them, modify them to be so sensitive that they could detect a random mobile call in Utah, and then basically just walk around abandoned buildings going, it must be a ghost! Seriously, this is why I have nothing but contempt for this hobby.
Particularly like right in this area right here.
That's quite significant, isn't it?
It is actually, and there's a little bit of a drop in temperature.
How much do you guys want to bet that that's just an electric wire or something in the wall?
I mean, I do feel slightly nauseous at the moment. So,
you?
Yeah, so I think, that's quite significant.
Oh, so you got a roadside taco before coming here and then got the dreaded shits. It must be a ghost!
It's right in here, just right in this area right here.
Yeah, and the other thing is, anybody who sleeps in this room, I'm sure that they would have their dreams invaded by whatever's present in the room.
Are you gonna test that theory? Are you gonna make one of the crew guys sleep in here? No? Alright.
Anyone who sleeps in this room is going to have their dreams invaded. It is science fact now, because I said it.
What do you think?
I think so.
How do you know that the ghost can do this? I'm gonna have to give Chris Bohr some credit here. At least he doesn't go in knowing what he's dealing with. He'll accept that some ghosts might be able to do things that others can't and shit.
I hate you people. You're making me compliment Chris Bohr's.
You know what there is in this room? An ectoplasmic mist.
A fucking what?
Yeah, I'm sorry for the reduced video quality, guys. There's ectoplasm energy in the air and I just can't get rid of it. I'm sure you've all had that problem before.
When the team began to test for spiritual energy in the main bedroom, everything, including the filming equipment, appeared to be affected by the strange atmosphere. Batteries drained despite being fully charged, and microphones began to fail.
In other words, they had nothing from their footage and just made up a story as to why they had nothing to show for their time.
You know, she's draining my battery down.
Can we just hold up, sir? Billy, is your mic still plugged in? Someone picking it up like the latest.
Oh no, the microphone and cameras are working perfectly fine. It must be a ghost interfering with it.
You know, the only thing that I can see malfunctioning there is that lady's sonic screwdriver, which makes me wonder if they're just basically calling it a team-wide malfunction when it's just her forgetting to charge a stupid little blinky thing.
To add to the sense of unease, the team captured an unexplained reflection in the bedroom's large mirror.
It's like a spot of light in the mirror that keeps appearing.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
It's an orb?
It's an orb!
How much do you lot want to bet that that's just some crew guy fucking with us by shining a torch on the wall? But even if it's not, you know, weird lighting effects happen all the time. Like, anyone who's ever tried filming has probably noticed something weird happen afterwards. Like, an orb floating across the screen, which is just a speck of dust. But no, in the eyes of these people, it must be a ghost! You know, 2 years ago, Loz and I actually went out to do a parody ghost hunting video. And we ended up cancelling the whole thing because my camera kept acting up to the point where we couldn't use any of the footage we got. I had to reformat my entire camera just to fix it. I really could have just used that bare minimum footage that I was able to obtain and then go, oh guys, a ghost sabotaged the project.
Even when the power was switched off, the light continued flickering for several minutes before disappearing. Billy Roberts was in no doubt. This activity was the work of a ghostly child.
I do love that. There's absolutely no way in hell that it could be anything but a ghost. It's a ghostly child, guys. Just accept it.
She seems to be not malevolent, but sort of mischievous, and I think that she died a very nasty death.
You got all that from some cold air and a light. Jesus, you're either good at this ghost hunting shit or you're the best bullshit artist I've personally ever come across.
The PlayStation team decided to leave the little girl to play in peace.
You probably should have done that to begin with. So the next place they go is this ghostly galleon, which is also a thing in real life. Who would have guessed? It's almost like basing your game around a bunch of cliches would result in a lot of real life coincidences or something.
The USS Seeker was a location which shared many similarities with the sunken HMS Victoria in Ghosthunter. In the game, the blast of ghostly gunfire resounds as the supernatural soldiers play out their never-ending battle beyond death.
That sounds kinda cool, actually. Shame it's not what Team Idiocy find.
The USS Seeker was a battleship used during World War II. After being sunk in a devastating battle which saw most of its crew killed, she was sold and is now used as a museum piece. What nobody expected was that members of the ill-fated crew of 1940 would continue to protect and serve.
No, they didn't.
The Ghosthunter team went aboard.
As soon as we came into the parking lot and I looked at the ship, I immediately started feeling almost a disorientation and dizziness somewhat. And when I entered the ship, I started feeling as if I had motion sickness, as if the ship was actually bobbing in the sea even though it is landlocked.
Oh, so you were wasted. Cool.
Imagine serving your country against evil and dying in battle, and then the only thing that waits for you afterwards is being stuck on a dingy ship, constantly annoyed by idiots like these for all time. That is a horror film right there. That is the script for a horror film right fucking there.
I feel very agitated around this area, and I'm, you know, very, very certain. I know people would say it's obvious, but quite a few people died in this area.
I feel a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxious feeling, a lot of high adrenaline.
For me personally, it was like stepping through some kind of a time barrier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And watching a replay of the events.
Yeah, it's like that episode of Torchwood where they go back to the 1940s. Except these jackasses didn't go back to the 40s and they just stood around an old boat crying about their anxiety.
I felt not only the emotions, but I started getting like a flashing, almost as if I was watching a movie in slow motion, of what was actually happening on the ship during a war.
It's funny they can't prove that.
There were men running around yelling, guns going off, the larger cannon-like guns shooting off into the air, airplanes coming over, exploding.
I get the impression, I very briefly glimpsed an officer standing up there.
I got that too.
Shaking his hand, pointing down at somebody as though he was angry in some way. And that's a sort of an an image from the past. So there is a lot of anger as well, isn't it?
There's a lot of anger, anxiety, frustration.
There isn't usually, it's just because you two twits are here. They want you both to fuck off.
And it's almost as if the ship itself has a pulse to it.
That's it, a living personality all of its own.
It's as if the ship has taken on that paranormal energy and the ship itself is alive and breathing.
Well, if a cot can have a ghost, I don't see why a ship can't.
There is a bit of agitation which I feel is probably from the people who were actually killed, whose lives were terminated. So, I mean, there's a lot of energy around here, isn't
There's a great deal of energy.
I do love that. It just sort of trails off into, there's a lot of energy around here. Translation being, I've run out of bullshit to say and I'm gonna default to blaming it on the energy. The dark energy. I got a lot of enemies feeding off my energy.
I saw an apparition of a young man, maybe 18, 19 years old. He looked to be about 5'9". Very small build, but very, very fair, very blonde, blue-eyed, and very cheery, and he was running up the stairs.
Oh, so you saw a ghost of one of the Nazis?
And I got the same energy from this same young man right around one of the guns. And I'm getting a vision of someone being shot at that gun that you were talking about, and then another man literally just pushing his body off and taking over the gun.
I'm gonna guess that's why Air Smiley Pants was so happy. He found a new toy to play with.
I got a lot of almost like past life regressions in here, where I was actually pushed into that time frame and seeing what was going on during the war. It's almost as if the boat itself pretty much pulls you into that era and reveals some of its history to you.
It's almost as if that's a bullshit excuse for not having any tangible evidence of supernatural activity.
During the USS Seeker shoot, members of the crew heard footsteps along empty corridors, and shadows appeared where there was no one standing.
Yeah, but that guy was a temp. We don't really count him as a person. Oh shit. You saw nothing.
Watching the tapes back later, it was evident that whilst the ship may have appeared empty, it was actually full of spiritual activity.
Oh, cool. Can we see some of it? No? Oh, okay.
Perilous and isolated, the Oakville swamplands provide one of the creepiest locations in Ghosthunter.
Of course it does. It's where the protagonist of Fable's family was murdered.
The swamps are terrorized by a deadly phantom, the mutated spirit of rich landowner David de Montfort, fused for eternity with the alligator that tore away his life.
I'm not gonna lie, that's kinda cool.
Naturally, no real-world destination could be as terrifying as that nightmarish landscape. Or could it?
Spoiler alert, it's not.
As soon as the PlayStation filming crew set foot in the Blackland swamp, they all felt uneasy.
So? They could just be a bunch of pussies. That doesn't prove shit.
Along with alligators and snakes, it seemed they weren't alone, and nobody wanted to linger.
Oh. Nobody wanted to linger on the empty set with bugger all going on. What a shocker.
Well, I get the impression there's a lot more buried here than what I can see.
There are.
Sounds a silly question, but did somebody actually live here as well?
Yes,
somebody,
they did.
Because,
How do you know? Is there, I don't know, a ruin of a house nearby?
there's quite a lot of activity, I think, in a paranormal sense, and it's quite powerful.
Cool. Show us some.
This was actually a town. This
was it?
the town of Frenier. This entire area out here in the swamp. It was a cabbage farming community. German settlers had settled the area. And one of the residents out here was a voodoo woman by the name of Julia Brown. And she was somewhat eccentric. She would sit on her front porch and sing songs, and she would always sing, "When I die, I'm going to take the whole town with me."
So believe it or not, this one is actually true. This woman, Julia Brown, supposedly did exist according to census records, and there are some, records of her actually being the person described here. And apparently, yes, this hurricane did happen not long after she died. But unfortunately, thanks to hacks like these, getting information on that is so difficult because every idiot has their own version of this story.
Now, Julia Brown did eventually pass away, and mourners came from hundreds of miles away to go to this woman's funeral. It was the day that the hurricane of 1915 hit into the Pontchartrain Lake with 100-mile-an-hour winds that swept through the town of Frenier, knocking mourners, the casket, everywhere into the swamp. And then a 30-foot tidal surge literally swallowed up the whole town.
Wow. So that's
And the Army Corps of Engineers came in, and there were no building materials. There was no town left, so they literally had to bury the entire town in a mass grave right here.
Yeah, they did it in front of a very hungry alligator who still haunts this place to this day.
Families, children, women.
There's quite an elderly woman that died as well. I felt it before, and she kept talking about Martha.
Why did you say that name?
So I did a bit of the Googles and found absolutely no references to anyone called Martha in relation to this tragedy. Surprise!
And Martha seems to be, and that's not a German name, I don't think, is it? But she kept talking about Martha, so Martha's connected in some way to this.
Martha, yes.
Do you understand that?
I think that that's possible, that the little girl that survived was Martha.
Oh, I see. This guy was just briefed on the way over there in the car. Or maybe he looked it up the night before.
Because there was two survivors in the town of Frenier. An elderly black man grabbed a little girl and got inside one of the railroad boxcars, and he held on as the winds whipped through, and he held on to that little girl and he saved her.
And that elderly black man was Martha.
He eventually died. She grew up to marry and have family, and her family is still plagued by the ghost of Julia Brown.
Still today?
Still going after the last of the
amazing.
living from the town of Frenier.
So I actually looked it up again and found out that there's a Fox News article that says that the survivor's name was actually Helen Berg, who survived with her father. I found several articles and journals about it, and none of them mention the name Martha at all. In fact, Google is quite insistent that the name Martha has nothing to do with this shit.
Both Kalila and Billy claimed they felt the presence of spirits on the land housing the unmarked graves. For the rest of the team, they just knew it was a place they never wanted to return to again.
Gosh, none of them wanted to return to the muddy, sweaty shithole swamp? Shocker.
Last of the living from the town of Frenier.
At the end of their investigation, the ghost hunting team were still no closer to explaining the similarities between these real haunted places and locations featured in the new PlayStation game. It's a mystery, which continues to this very day.
The locations are cliche and the ghosts are cliche, and that's why they have a lot of similarities to real life folklore. Case closed. I didn't even have to get up out my chair, and I did the entire case in a bunny suit. Beat that.
And so it ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. So yeah, that was kind of fun. Kalila Smith is actually quite active in her field even to this day. She now offers private consultations and actually has a reference to this video on her website, linking it to a rather dodgy copy of this on YouTube. Billy Roberts is still alive, though I'm pretty sure he's retired. His website is defunct, and unlike Kalila, he doesn't seem to have made any real appearances since 2017, and even that was an anthology compilation book of all of his previous works. As for the game this series was based on, Ghosthunter, it seemingly was given a rather mixed reception, saying that it looked great for the time but was very short and lacked any real depth.
I think I'm going to have to visit that game. It does look kind of interesting, and I do remember it quite vividly from my childhood. I played the demo, but never got around to buying it until I was much older. Well, I guess that's all for this Halloween extravaganza. Thank you for getting through this. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great Halloween, and I hope to see you in November. If, you know, I'm able to make content in November.
Last word on the living